Welcome everybody to Rewind a SmackDown. My name is Wai Ting. I am your lead today because John Pollock is going to be resting up. He will be covering ROH Final Battle, end of an era tomorrow, and joining him will be Mike Murray, and I think WH Park is also going to be with them. So that'll be a cafe exclusive for all of you guys talking about Ring of Honor tomorrow evening. On the free feed, we have Phil Chertok and Eric Marcotte talking about UFC 269, I believe that number is. So that'll be available live right afterwards on the YouTube. So quick plug for all those guys, and one more plug here. WH Park's got the long and winding Royal Road talking about Toshiaki Kawada versus Mitsuharu Misawa from May 1st, 1998. That drops in the free feed this Saturday morning. So by the time most of you listening to this, you'll have a chance to listen to that. So watch the match, listen to him and Dylan Fox talk about it. But on these UFC weekends, of course, I am always joined by Kate from Montreal. Welcome back to the show, Kate.
Hello, long time no see.
Yeah, I mean a little over 24 hours basically.
Good
You
to see you. Thank you for having me on again.
you really did pick quite the news cycle to join us for these past 30 or so hours. I mean, obviously some very
Yeah,
unfortunate news with the Jeff Hardy incident, but it was wonderful to get your takes on that yesterday, right as we heard the news.
it was a pleasure. I really enjoyed it.
And then
I mean, I didn't enjoy the subject, but I
of
enjoyed being
course,
able to talk about it.
but then today, I mean, biggest story of the day, no doubt. And I'm not even being facetious
And
here.
Hook.
The debut of Hook on AEW Rampage. So glad that you were able to join us. Now, I'm gonna leave it up to you, Kate. What should we start off with here? Should we start off with WWE SmackDown or AEW Rampage?
Sorry, I didn't get that last bit.
Shall we start with SmackDown or Rampage?
Yes. The SmackDown. SmackDown. Let's start with the opening act.
Save the best for last. All right. Opening act here from the Staples Center, soon to be the Crypto.com Arena, but for now it is still the state. Enjoy it, everybody. Enjoy the era of the Staples Center while we can. We start off the show with a graphic dedicated to Jack Lanza, and later on in the show they would actually give a video package. So it's always interesting to see like who gets these sort of treatments. With obviously unfortunate passings here, but Jack Lanza, given his status as a former backstage producer in this company for such a long time, I think understandable why he was given this amount of time, and obviously everybody. I wish they could do this for everybody, but it's always interesting to see who gets them and who doesn't. We start
Well,
the
I
show off.
think that. Oh, sorry.
Sorry, please go ahead,
I
Kate.
think with just a quick thing that there is something to be said for giving a tribute to people who lived a long, fulfilling life and who got a lot of work done. I think maybe they want to put the emphasis on that because it's kind of a celebration of their life as well as a mourning of their passing.
We start the show off with Sami Zayn. He is wheeled out this week in a neck brace, a leg, and a boot. He's accompanied by two male nurses who are jacked, by the way, so you know where this segment is going. This is all, of course, stemming from Brock and Roman Reigns' attacks on him last week. Sami Zayn says he is the toughest man in WWE history because it took both Roman and Brock to take him out. He, of course, calls it a conspiracy that two men who normally hate each other are somehow able to work together to rob him of his title opportunity. And now he has to do the noble thing and sue. He's going to sue Brock. He's going to sue Roman. He's going to sue Paul Heyman, Adam Pearce, Sonya Deville, the referee. And this, of course, prompts Paul Heyman to come out. He says, "You're stealing my people's shtick." And then he just promptly dismisses him. Sammy gets up on one foot, and he says he knows Roman Reigns is on a week-long sabbatical in Samoa this week, so he starts to physically threaten Paul Heyman. He says there's nobody here to defend you. But out comes Brock Lesnar. Brock comes out. He grabs a chair to sit down to speak to Sammy, and he apologizes. He says, "We're both Canadians. I did you a favor. I knew you were never going to beat Roman Reigns last week, so I attacked you beforehand, so Roman Reigns' win wouldn't count." And I mean, I don't know if Sammy actually buys it or if he does not, but it's kind of moot because Brock continues. He asks, "Which part of Canada are you from?" Sammy says from Montreal, to which Brock actually responds, Kate, please do the honors. What did Brock
He
say here?
he handled it. He said "je ne sais quoi, oui oui," which I mean, it's a phrase that's used in English too. Just means I don't know what. Yes, yes. Like it was nonsense, but he did actually get all the words right. Credit
It
to
was
him.
it was more French than I expected Brock Lesnar to actually speak. Do you have any assessment of maybe how he did speaking this limited amount of French?
I mean, it was certainly it was limited, and yeah, it's an expression that's used sometimes in English too. Je ne sais quoi. But you know what? It was kind of it was funny. It made me laugh, and like I said, he got all the words right. No problem. And it is sort of very typically French parlance, to use another French word.
Brock wants to invite Sammy to Saskatchewan where they can go hunting and fishing. Sammy says, I'm a vegan. And in fact, he's been meaning to speak to Brock about the whole hunting thing. Brock says, come on, let's go. And he starts to wheel a reluctant Sammy out of the ring. I don't know what he was going to do after this. Like carry him out. I mean, what?
Yeah,
Hey,
I was wondering, like, how is the wheelchair getting out of the ring with just one person? I kind of expected him to sling Sammy over his shoulder at one point, which would
he,
have made me laugh.
he could have done it, I assume, with the wheelchair and everything. Heyman stops them and says, what the hell am I looking at here? I spent too much time at the dispensary. He goes on this entire spiel, putting over like the whole Brock Lesnar thing that he usually does, and says normally this would be an automatic trip to Suplex City. Brock gets really pumped up by this, Paul Heyman kind of rally cry for the Brock Lesnar Suplex City thing, and then he just starts attacking these male nurses. Uh, Sami Zayn is left all alone in that wheelchair with Brock Lesnar, and Brock just kicks Sami Zayn, throws the wheelchair out of the ring, and hits Sami with another F5. Heyman all the while sticking around ringside and smiling, the biggest smile. So they are continuing to tease Paul Heyman's affiliation with Brock Lesnar on a week that Roman Reigns is apparently on vacation, while also continuing to show us a lot more of this wonderful comedic dynamic between Brock Lesnar and Sami Zayn. What do you think of the opening segment, Kate?
I really, maybe a little longer than it should have been, but I'm not going to complain too much. I thought it was very funny. I'm not a huge fan of Lesnar, but you know what? I actually think he's been really good in the spoken segments. It has just shown him as a different character, not tremendously. It's not off what he was before. He's not departing a lot, but it has had this extra dimension. I do find that I'm starting to get interested in what's going on with Heyman. I thought he was very good here. And Sammy's always great, and yeah, so I thought this was very funny. Brock speaking French was funny. I kind of liked this tease too, that Heyman has this way of just unleashing Brock like he has some kind of mind control over him, and I hope that they use that again. I suspect they will, because I think it was pretty effective.
Yeah, this constant dangling of like, who's Paul Heyman truly siding on. I mean, it's been going on for so long now, and obviously with Brock Lesnar's absence of late, it feels like it might have lost a little bit of momentum for me to just kind of jump back into it right now. I personally don't have like a ton of intrigue, to figure out who's Paul really siding with, but nonetheless, he is the connective tissue that links Brock Lesnar with Roman Reigns. It's a still unresolved issue between them right now. And here, I thought this week was just a way to kind of bridge a week without Roman Reigns to continue to heat that feud up before day one. But in the meantime, please give me more of this Brock Lesnar and Sami Zayn. Even after this Roman Reigns feud, these guys have to like spend as much time on screen together as possible. They are
there
like
is some there is some real chemistry there. At least spoken. We haven't really seen it in ring. But yeah, at this point, I'm kind of more interested in seeing Brock versus Sammy than I am Brock versus Roman.
Unfortunately, I can never see them doing like an RKBro type of thing because Brock Lesnar, I don't think will ever be active enough to certainly
No,
participate in a full-time tag team, much less ever lower himself to contend for a tag team championship in the WWE. But still, these backstage segments, in front of stage segments, like they've both been tremendous so far. Kayla is in the back with Brock. Kayla asks him why he did that. And Brock simply says, "Ask my advocate, Paul Heyman." Up next, we have Nakamura and Rick Boogs taking on Los Lotharios. This match was very short, largely a showcase for Boogs, I would say, and his strength. You know, the more I see
Aren't
the
they
man,
all?
they are all like this, and the more I see the man wrestle, the more I just can't help but think of how displaced he is from time, because he really does feel like somebody out of, late 80s WWF, jacked, cartoonish gimmick, and in ring incredibly sloppy. Like, just, the
Mhm.
only thing the man kind of has going for him is some impressive strength, a certain level of charisma, but his offense really kind of consists of like lifting dudes and then just throwing them very not gracefully. So he does this a few times to members of Lotharios, and then Nakamura simply tags in, hits a Kinshasa and a Carrillo, and gets the win. So not much of a match. I wouldn't say much of a feud here either, because this seemed to just completely extinguish whatever heat there was. And yeah, just a showcase for Boogs, I would say.
Yeah, and you're talking about four people, none of whom really talk. So it's hard to get a feud that's really engaging. Boogs, by some by a significant measure, is the weakest of the four of them. Um, yeah, it's just I don't feel it. They put the IC title on Nakamura months ago, like back in the summer, and I think he's defended it once. And even then, even the defense was more about Boogs doing a distraction than. Yeah, I don't. I find that the charisma that Boogs has is wearing very thin with me, because it's not like he does a lot, and he doesn't have the chops to keep up with guys like this in the ring. So
Mm.
yeah, this fell very flat for me.
The guitar player is a very one-dimensional character that, I mean, they did attempt like 30 years ago and didn't really work back then. So I do wonder what the goal is here with Rick Boogs. Obviously getting him onto TV, pairing him with Nakamura as somebody who's experienced and giving him that airtime is somehow meant to have him be have them endear him to the audience. But we got to see more. We have to at
Oh
least
yeah,
have a story. We have to have some sort of dramatic tension. I get no sense of the man's personality besides the fact that he can play guitar and scream. So
yeah, and Elias died for this character, so I want at the very least something that is an improvement on Elias.
backstage, Kofi is there with Ricochet, Drew Gulak, the Viking Raiders, and Mansoor to reveal a brand new crown for King Woods. This crown is, I would say, a bit more ridiculous than the last one. It's massive. It's almost like video game like, appropriately for King Woods here, and apparently it is forged from donated unicorn horns. So they engage in a course of huzzas as they celebrate the new crowning of King Woods, and something for Ricochet to do on this night. Drew
Yeah,
finds
and Mansoor is done too. Like this is his role now.
we didn't even get an Aaliyah appearance tonight.
No, and Mustafa Ali is apparently like he's evidently gone. I
Well,
I
he
guess.
just had a child, did he not? So is that at least not part
Yeah,
of the
that's
reason?
true. That's true. He may have got yeah, he may be on paternity leave.
Right, right.
But
Uh,
hard to tell.
hard to tell sometimes, sure. Okay, so up next we have Drew backstage. Drew McIntyre, not Drew Gulak. The other Drew, the the less famous Drew. Drew McIntyre confronts Adam Pearce about not being in the Battle Royal on Black Friday. Pearce says Pierce like basically blames it on like upper management from what I heard, and he basically also tells Drew that his sword is banned from the ring tonight. So Drew takes Angela and stabs it through Pierce's desk. He pierced
Here's is
Pierce's
it.
desk with the sword. I thought this was legitimately impressive. I mean, it looked like an actual solid piece of wood desk. And I have to imagine it took some strength and accuracy to actually pull this off in one take. You can only have so many desks back there that you could try this with. And the man managed to do it in one go.
Yeah, I mean, I'm assuming that it was hollowed out a little bit from underneath, but yeah, it was a good it was a good take. I
See,
kept thinking that, are we gonna do like an Excalibur thing? Like the Excalibur, the sword, not Excalibur, the guy who we're gonna be
yes.
talking about shortly. But Yeah, it's like, is it going to be like, Drew will face whoever could draw the sword from the desk? Um, I don't know.
I see.
Weird little spot, but
I don't know if a cheap little IKEA desk with the fake sort of hollowed out center would break this way. Maybe it would. Maybe it would only stab this way through a desk like that. But it looked impressive. I think Drew should just like be in the back stabbing things, like stabbing objects. You know. Toni Storm and Sasha Banks are backstage, and Sasha gives Toni a bit of a pep talk. Sasha, the most famous woman in this company, you can argue, putting over Toni Storm here, the new, relatively new prospect on the SmackDown roster. She says that, Toni, you've trained all over the world, Australia, Japan, England, and you've mastered all those styles. The WWE has never had a hybrid wrestler like you. Sasha brings up the pies that her and Sasha have thrown into each other's faces, and Toni says, "Pie backs a bitch." Sasha says it's Toni time, and I love Sasha Banks. I'm not a fan of her delivery, oftentimes, especially in
how is she
situations.
this bad at promos? Like, after the length of time she had, I mean, she's acted, she's in the Mandalorian, she's not like this. So it's not even a matter of, memorizing the script, because that's obviously scripted. I don't understand. I can't wrap my head around it, because she is outstanding in every other way, and this just is, I would say it's a problem, because it sort of diminishes her.
Yeah, I mean, I would say this crowd loves her so much, and her fans are so incredibly loyal to her that
Mm-hmm.
even her not being so incredibly strong on the microphone, I don't think is she will still be a superstar. In fact, I believe I think it was Brandon Thurston who showed us a lot of the Google trends lately, and Sasha is repeatedly up there among the most popular, if not the most popular woman in the roster. So um, it's not like she doesn't she it's not like it'll cripple her career or prevent her from reaching the next level. But
Oh,
nonetheless,
no.
for somebody who is so exceptional at so many things, it is certainly the most lacking aspect of her game. But it could be just the material. Like we wonder, outside of this system, outside of having to regurgitate lines like this, how would she sound? But also, we see people play within this system that are able to do a whole lot better with the material that they're given.
Mhm.
Drew McIntyre versus Sheamus is up next. It's a very familiar feud that we have seen, of course, many times on Raw, but I believe this was their first encounter on SmackDown together in a one-on-one
So
situation. They go through a commercial break, and then when we come back, they counter each other's finishes until Drew hits a Claymore out of nowhere for the win here. A very physical match, great chemistry as always. What'd you think, Kate?
uh, really good. Like, look, it's a no consequences match. We have seen it a lot. Haven't seen it in several months. I think that their program kind of fizzled out before WrestleMania, and or right around that time, and so we haven't seen it in several months. And uh, I I always enjoy them together. This was a good, not one of their best matches, but good, especially for the time that they were given. I don't know if they're gonna do something with this, or if it was just filler. I suspect the latter, but I'll take it.
Yeah, I mean, Sheamus is in the middle of this Ridge Holland Cesaro thing, which we didn't really get any
Yeah,
follow
who
up on
was
this week.
mysteriously absent tonight? I guess. Well, maybe Ridge Holland and Cesaro went out for coffee or something. I have
Yeah.
no idea.
But it doesn't look like Drew will be involved with them because it looks like Drew's next program will be with King Corbin. What was his name? Baron Corbin and Madcap
Happy
Moss. Oh
Corbin.
shit! Of course. How could I forget? Happy Corbin and Madcap Moss. All we see of them this week is them stealing the desk containing Angela. So they are now in possession. I don't know if they're here for the desk or if they're here for the sword. Maybe they just wanted a writing surface. You know,
But could they pull the sword out of the desk?
big
Are they?
question. Are they gonna have to Are they responsible for transporting this desk sword combo to the next town? Don't know.
Yeah.
Uh, this is where we got our Jack Lanza video, and it was very well done, as they
Mhm.
always have been. And I also encourage everybody for further reading on the career of Black Jack Lanza. John has a really excellent obituary piece written on the site right now, so go and check that out. Paul Heyman is in the back with Kayla, and he asks if he is Brock Lesnar's advocate. Heyman dismisses her, and Kayla wants to know what is Roman Reigns' reaction, to which Paul gives a very troubled look as he leaves the arena for the evening.
Mhm.
And then it's the big match, Kate, the one we've been waiting for months now. Naomi versus Sonya Deville. We even get a brief video recap of their entire feud up until this point. Naomi grabs the microphone before the match and tells Sonya to come out, take that suit off, and get this glow. So Sonya comes out. She's wearing she we actually got to see a debut of her in-ring look, her new in-ring
Mhm.
look, and she comes out wearing a
Mhm.
suit jacket, and then she takes the suit jacket off on the ramp, revealing this kind of black leather in-ring look. What
Mhm.
do you think of her new look?
I really liked it. I did not think that her last look particularly went well with the character at all. I think that this, nailed it. Good. Leave it alone. Like especially, I like coming out with the jacket. As the tie-in with her regular character. So.
I agree. I thought she looked like fantastic, like top level. Like her promo
Mhm.
status is already
Mhm.
there, and if
Yeah.
she wants to be catapulted into a title program after this, I can totally see it. So Sonya shows up. She grabs the mic and introduces a special ring announcer, Natalia, and a special guest timekeeper, Shayna Baszler. So those two are ringside, and we kind of know what the deal is here. Before the match starts, Naomi rushes and attacks Sonya, takes Natalia out to even out the handicap advantage. Sonya gets out of the ring and revives Shayna and Natalia, and then they all surround the ring as Naomi is scared. She is being bullied. You can
Mhm.
argue that she is being surrounded by a group of vultures. To
Yeah.
which,
Funny, circling like vultures. Indeed. Funny that.
so then out comes the re-debuting, or you know what, the main roster debuting, the
Yeah.
proper
Main
main
roster
roster
debut.
debuting. Xia Li, the Protector. They they went all out with this VR technology for this entrance. We were wondering, John and I, how they were going to transition from this comic book thing, very
Mhm.
cartoonish thing, into a real world setting. They're keeping a comic book, everybody. They're putting the comic book around the live person through this VR technology. So she comes out. There are electric sparks. There are lightning bolts coming out of her hands. Um, I shit you not. Like, there are sparks coming out of the background. She looks like Jamie Foxx as Electro in the new Spider-Man trailer coming out here.
Yeah.
She joins Naomi in attacking. First of all, what are your thoughts on the entrance?
Oh, I thought it was amazing. I thought that I was very fond of this. I don't like a lot of the VR stuff that they do, like the birds flying out of Riddle's feet and whatnot. But this is like, okay, if you're gonna lose it, you nailed it. And yeah, that they it's I think it was a great transition between the pure comic book. Like I always saw that, like I see that as very much influenced by the Lucy Liu character Ohanishi from Kill Bill.
Orinishi, yes.
Yeah, and so you have to, and like in that story, you have to sort of bridge between that and the real character, and I thought this accomplished it. I thought, it's a wow kind of entrance. It's going to be something that gets people going, and indeed it did. Like people, the crowd got into this.
Brian in the chat room corrects me. We meant to say AR for augmented reality and not VR.
Whoops.
So thank you for the correction, Brian.
Thank you.
I am not sold, Kate. I can appreciate it. I can appreciate using technology to kind of enhance an entrance. I guess I don't like it when wrestling relies too much on technology, and especially in a medium that really should largely be based on in person, presentation. And this crowd didn't really react as if it was a big entrance. I mean, from what we can understand, they probably just saw a woman come out here and Xia Li essentially do her NXT entrance, coming out doing like the martial arts kind of formations, and otherwise maybe not looking as big. It will be really interesting to see next week. Now that audiences have seen what this looks like on TV, if they will react any bigger.
I
But
wonder if they're going to do the full entrance like that every week. Like, I think this almost felt like this is the big introduction. Like, I think that if they're doing this every time, maybe I wouldn't get as into it, but I think it needed certain drama. But yeah, you can see
how
where
far
it's going to split people.
how far until we actually see AR technology used in a match? I mean, they certainly would have had their chance with like the all the Fiend and Alexa stuff. We could have had lightning bolts. Certainly during the pandemic era, without crowds, you could have gotten away with all this stuff.
Hmm.
Now I wonder. So she comes out all decked out in AR, VR, whatever R technology. Zaya joins Naomi in attacking Natalia and Shayna. So they take the heels out, and Sonya is now sandwiched between the two baby faces in Zaya and Naomi. Zaya takes her out with a spin kick as Shayna and Natalia ultimately pull her to safety. So I would say, as expected, we did not get Naomi versus Sonya tonight. Um, and I don't know if this crowd was necessarily disappointed because I wonder if they expected it either, or maybe they didn't have that much anticipation for the match to begin with. But this was largely about Xia Li's entrance and Xia Li's debut.
Hmm.
Um, what did you think about the rest of the segment, Kate?
I think that uh, they're toying with people a bit. First of all, I kind of wondered how they were going to do the Xia Li character, the Haiti Gulchers, the defender of the vulnerable, because it's a wrestling show. There aren't a lot of vulnerable people. They kick ass for a living, or sort of staged kick ass. Um, my concern, I think that Xia Li, like her moveset is cool enough that she can get a good reaction. My concern is that Naomi is one of these characters who's sort of beloved, and I think a lot of people feel like she's been hard done by for a long time, and she has a lot of support online. I don't know if people are going to love having this new character introduced and sort of going over Naomi, sort of hopping her place in the pecking order. And I don't know how this very much felt like it was about, as you said, that it was about Xia Li. Uh,
Yeah.
I think it was a cool intro. I think people will like Xia. I think that it's going to breed further frustration that Naomi just is not getting the shot that people think that she deserves. And
Yeah,
there's reason for that.
I can completely understand the framing of the segment to make Naomi feel like a bullied person to introduce this story of the protector of the bullies. I definitely get that. I just don't feel like you could do that while dangling the thread of this Naomi Sonya match, which is ultimately just going to piss your audience off when you're not giving it to them.
And not for how long they've been building it up. Like
Yeah.
this has been going on for a while.
Yeah, and ultimately, I think this set a negative tone for Xia Li's entrance. So you're not necessarily looking back on it with, I think, like satisfaction, and instead you're kind of looking at it as looking at her as a bit of an obstacle to what you promised the audience that they were going to get on this show. So I didn't love that. I think her kicks look good. I don't know if the crowd is buying her as like this great savior just yet. She is smaller in stature than some of the roster, Naomi and Sonya included, it looks like. A spot like this, I think, often works well with giants, like people who are physically intimidating and can actually look like they can stand up to the bullies. So it's going to have to be her in-ring style. It's obviously going to be a lot of the selling and the framing of the segments to position her in that way. Um, the jury's still out. I wasn't completely sold after week one. Especially like, for, I think, a gimmick that has to prove itself in a real world setting versus, through production elements. I think they need to do a lot more of that rather than relying on the AR stuff. But
Well,
it
they have to pay it off. Like I said, like the AR is sort of an impressive entrance, but yeah, like I said, if I were them, I wouldn't even do that full entrance every week. I think that that's, you've introduced her, it was a big deal. You don't have to do it every single time.
Up next we have RKBro, who are of course visiting from Raw. Did they give a reason like for why they're here? I missed it if they did.
Not that I saw. Is that the quarterly invitational? We still doing that? Like,
Depends what you think of a quarter as, like
yeah,
what's the
they've
quarterly?
got a lot of quarters going on.
Yeah. But no one's asking at this point anyway. It's like, okay, whatever. Like the Raw Tag Team Champions are here on SmackDown. They're even going to have a match tonight. RK Bro are stoked to be on SmackDown, and Riddle introduces Orton to a number of his friends. It's the cast of Jackass Forever. For me, it's like I didn't even know this movie was coming out, but so it's like the first time I've kind of caught up with like this group of people, and it's just incredibly weird seeing these Jackass dudes like now middle aged. Um, but
Yeah,
anyway,
I don't think that that was quite the shot to the younger generation that they might think it is. That's
yeah, like I don't know. Is it appealing? Like, I mean, there's nostalgia and everything. I suppose there's still plenty for Jackass. Maybe I don't know.
I
Um,
think that, well, and I think that the one thing that caught people's attention was a few months ago, supposedly there was like a rumor going around that Darby Allin was going to be in this movie. So it's just like immediately sort of
right?
check the internet, check the internet. It's not true. He wasn't in the final one. Shane McMahon is in the final one.
What?
But yeah, yeah,
Shane
he's just
is
on
in the Jackass
IMDb.
movie?
Yes,
How?
apparently.
What's he doing?
Uh,
Well, I mean,
but yeah,
it actually
he's listed in the credits.
it actually fits perfectly. I mean, if you're gonna pick
Oh
anybody in the
yeah.
WWE to do stupid stunts and jump off of shit, like it would be Shane. So okay, fits. Shane McMahon, and this is like jumping off cage. I'm Shane McMahon. This is like jumping off a helicopter into like like I can't wait for that actually.
I want to I almost want to see what happens, but yeah. So that's I mean the crucial thing is Darby Allin is not in it because just for a moment it was like, oh, someone messed up. But
So Riddle is asking the Jackass guys if they have advice for getting thrown around, and Johnny Knoxville then proceeds to show him a move as he surprise low blows Dave England. He then asks Chris Pontius, Party Boy, for any tricks, and Chris Pontius simply tells him to stay lubricated. So,
yeah,
or, um, have you seen the Jackass movie
I,
or any of Jackass?
I saw the first one. That's I think I've seen bits of others, but yeah, I mean it's funny for what it is. I don't know. I think people I think Americans are probably too concerned about whether or not they have health insurance to absorb those kind of shocks now.
So Orton just leaves as like he's clearly not a fan. And Knoxville says he's more wound up than the nuts on a new bridge, uh, presumably on a skateboard or a scooter. So there's our movie cross promotion for the day. More cross promotion to come because Migos are set to appear at WWE Day One in their hometown of Atlanta. So look forward to that, everybody. Charlotte versus Toni Storm is our big match that's been promoted. That may or may not happen up next. This is billed as a title contender opportunity, so it's a non-title match. But if Toni wins, of course she gets a title shot. There are "Let's Go Toni" chants early on here. There are a couple of big boots from both women that really, unfortunately, don't connect too well. Not enough to derail the match, but it was noticeable. Charlotte goes for her double moonsault spot that she got from Andrade, and the positioning was quite off mark here because Charlotte ends up doing on the second moonsault some sort of handstand into some sort of cover. It looked totally weird, and at least to me, Kate, it felt like these two were feeling a bit off early on. What'd you think?
Yeah, and Toni was laying on her stomach too. She had to roll her over to pin. Like
Mm.
she seemed to go to pin her, and then they'd be like, "Whoa, crap!" Like, yeah, it was a little weird.
St- yeah, but still, this crowd was cheering for Toni Storm. Charlotte then has Toni trapped on the apron near the post as she stomps on Toni and refuses to let up, getting herself intentionally DQ'd in a very short amount of time. So this match really never got going. It was very short. A lot sloppier, I have to say, than I was expecting to start. And in fact, kind of reminded me of Charlotte, I think, is great when she's at her best, but I think we've also seen her have strange chemistry with certain people,
Hmm.
and maybe Charlotte
Hmm.
herself having off nights. And in this situation, I don't exactly know who to blame. It probably equal, but it reminded me a lot of some of the Charlotte Rhea matches, really rushing through things, and a lot of it ending up looking kind of sloppy. What do you think, Kate?
Yeah. I didn't think Toni looked bad. Now, again, it's hard to tell who's responsible for some of the missed moves and some of the confusion. So I'm not willing to put this all on Charlotte. I did think, that Toni hit a couple moves, a couple suplexes that looked very nice. And I'm glad to see that the crowd is sort of interested in her. I mean, part of that is that I think Charlotte just has so much heat as a heel, which is, why they should always keep her as one. um, I just, the stupidity of the end of the match just almost kind of pushed everything out. It's just, you're in a match, and if this woman wins by any means, she gets a shot at your title. So you intentionally get yourself disqualified, hence handing her the win. Explain. Like, I need to know, like, if Toni had done something to just get Charlotte really pissed off or whatever, but this was just epic stupid to me.
It felt like it was her strategy to somehow get herself DQ'd, but it makes absolutely no sense. You're right. Like, why would she want she? I mean, if she wanted to grant Toni Storm a title match, she would have just done it. The reason this is a
Yeah,
title contender's opportunity is because of Charlotte. So why would
yeah.
she just like give her this title shot anyway? That I don't understand. I assume they will. It's such a glaring hole that I think they will try to explain it, but I don't even know what sort of explanation they can come up with for something like this.
And having cheated us out of the Sonya Naomi match they've been building for months, doing the same with the other women's match that they promised was just so irritating. And yeah, I don't. Uh,
So,
eh.
unfortunately, a segment in a match that was disappointing on many fronts. I will say, like, I have full confidence that, like, we know the talent level of both of these women, and I have confidence that the next time that they meet, hopefully it'll be a lot more together. They will address whatever timing issues that they might have had, and that there's definitely a better match within these two to be had. So we'll see. Brock is in the back with Adam Pearce, and Adam Pearce, of course, is very scared. Brock brings up the $1 million fine that Pearce gave him and says, thanks, because he heard the money went to a charity and you gave me some extra time off. And during my time off, I was able to hunt a 2,000-pound moose. Brock then proceeds to take out his flip phone to try to show Adam Pearce a photo. He doesn't know how to work these things, and so he proceeds to break the phone in front of Pearce as he starts to describe killing and gutting this moose and eventually eating this moose up. He even hung the moose in his cabin and named it Pierce in honor of Adam so that he can remember him every time he looks at it. As he just continues to intimidate this poor Adam Pierce who lost his desk today. Now he's being threatened, subtly by Brock Lesnar. But again, Brock was just so much fun to watch here, wasn't he, Kate?
Mhm. I think that, well, interesting. The gutting of Moose, odd behavior for a babyface, but I thought he delivered this very well. And yeah, I think it's interesting that they're keeping this thing going a little bit with Pierce, because it makes me wonder if we're getting a follow up or if this was the end of it, just Brock kind of terrorizing him. But yeah, it's again, he's doing very well with spoken segments. Go figure. Didn't we all think for years that he couldn't talk?
Yeah, a lot's changed. He's really shown his range lately. So maybe some acting roles to come for Brock
Yeah,
Lesnar.
like maybe has he done classes or something? I don't know.
In the main event here, we have the Usos take it on the New Day, take it on from Raw, the tag team champions RKBro. The Usos are beating on Riddle, and they build forever to an Orton hot tag. They do this every single time, but it always works. It always works with these audiences. RK-Bro have been great at this. They love Randy Orton, and every time he tags in, this crowd explodes. Riddle finally fights them off, but now Kofi is able to fight them off. And now the New Day are getting booed because they're preventing the Randy Orton hot tag. Randy is delayed a bit more. The crowd starts chanting, "We want Randy." With 5 minutes left in the show, Riddle finally tags Orton in. Crowd gives a big reaction. Orton hits a few power slams, hits back suplexes to Woods and Kofi on the announcer's table to take them out. Orton hits the draping DDT onto Jay as Woods blind tags himself in. Woods then hits a backbreaker slash double stomp combo with Kofi as the New Day manage to pin the Usos. So they managed to use the Raw Tag Team Champions, but get them out before the finish. And this proceeds to heat up the New Day versus Usos title challenge that's coming up at day one. But
Is
what do you
it
think of the
really?
match? Well,
Um, I I think that this is a challenge. I've liked the RK Bro stuff. I think it's funny. I think that they've played out the story for longer than I thought they would, and I'm glad about that. The problem is that when you have Randy in there, it's like he becomes a distraction because he's what the crowd wants to see, and specifically they want to see the RKO. He's like the "I didn't do it" boy. Like, just do the move, Randy. Um, I I guess I didn't notice much about this match because so much of the emphasis was on whether or not, like, getting this hot tag to Randy and just delaying and delaying and delaying. I thought it was excessive in this case. I thought that maybe if this would have been better if it was a few minutes shorter, actually. Um, and they were already stalling because I think the Usos were in the ring for at least 10 minutes before the match actually started. And, it was fine, it was good, but I think it's very Randy Orton is proving trickier and trickier to manage in this role of being, even though they are treating him like the superstar. I
Yeah.
think that he almost diminishes anyone else who's in the match with him, including his partner.
This really felt like it was just a bit of a house show level match. Effective in getting a crowd to react in the moment for that one particular RKO or hot tag, but otherwise, in the grand scheme of this show, not serving any sort of purpose whatsoever. I thought it was pretty obvious that RKBro were simply here to maybe fulfill some of the Jeff Hardy star power that might have been lost on the show, or simply
Mm-hmm.
to maybe take away from the talk and the chatter of that particular story. But it was a main event that really felt inconsequential, had some loose connection to the day one match that feels still kind of cold because it's a match we've seen a million times before between the New Day and the Usos. And it's hard to complain about like the only match that I think had substantial length on the show that we actually had a finish for, but it doesn't necessarily excuse these other matches that you promoted and then either didn't deliver at all or only delivered like 2 minutes of before a bullshit DQ finish. So
I
overall, that was
suspect that this
disappointing.
was actually supposed to be Drew and Jeff Hardy,
Hmm.
not RK Bro, who were in the match. And that's why you had this sort of like wedged in match with Drew and Sheamus. And then, yeah, you have RK Bro doing because the sort of third wheel position in the match. I yeah, again, like they got the crowd to turn on the New Day, which is weird because the crowd didn't
Yeah.
want to see the New Day win. They wanted to see Randy
Yeah.
do
What was the
his
point of
moves and
that?
get the pin. Yeah, exactly. Like, I think if they were trying to build up this match between the Usos and the New Day, I think it failed
Mm.
because they weren't even the way the match was blocked. They were not the focus of it. It was all about Randy and his little sidekick.
So, what do you recommend people checking out from this show?
The Brock bits. Honestly, if you're gonna watch anything, I don't know if I'd say any of it is required viewing. I think the Brock bits were amusing. I think the Xia entrance looked cool. That's it, really, and that's ridiculous on a wrestling show.
Yeah, I agree with you there for those two things in terms of at least talking points and stuff that's actually of interest. Everything else felt very cookie cutter on the show, including your bullshit DQ finishes and whatnot. So the Xia Li AR special and then Brock Lesnar on the show doing comedy is great.
Mm-hmm.
On to Rampage here. And let's dive right in here, just like they did on the show, because we have for the AEW Tag Team Championships, FTR take it on the Lucha Bros. No entrances, just straight to the announcements from Dasha here. Excalibur does bring up their AAA match from 6 days ago, which, of course, FTR won. Excalibur's voice, at least to start, was also noticeably hoarser on the show. So, maybe. And this did sound like a show that was taped after. It's hard to tell, of course, with these things, but it didn't
Well, yeah,
really.
I think it was, and he had been like, people were noticing that he was getting hoarse at the end of
Hmm.
Dynamite, so might have gotten a glass of water, but took a toll on his voice.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of unfortunate because they don't really have too many other. I mean, Tony can do the job, of course, but um, Excalibur is really the guy. So, but it didn't really detract from the show. Like I thought probably a difficult show for him to continue through, but he managed to do a good job as always. Phoenix in this match dazzles early on. Penta is about to do his whole glove shtick and ends up throwing it into the crowd to distract Cash before delivering a big kick to him. FTR gain control after Dax back suplexes Phoenix onto the apron. They cut Phoenix off from his corner through a commercial, hot tag to Penta, and he takes both FTR members out. Tully then gets on the apron and attempts to attack Phoenix, and Phoenix ends up decking him. Cash goes to use the championship belt, but Phoenix takes it away. And in a scuffle, Dax ends up getting hit by it. Phoenix then does his Eddie Guerrero shimmy tribute thing as he goes for a frog splash, but Dax gets his knees up and covers Phoenix for 2. Phoenix then goes for a dive but falls right into FTR's big rig for another 2 count. As all 4 men start brawling in the middle of the ring, it ends with Cash and Penta being alone. They roll into a Penta Driver / Fear Factor combo, giving the Lucha Brothers the win at about 15 minutes. What did you think about the match, Kate?
Very good match. I find that these two, the more they work together, the better they're getting. These 4. I really liked it. I thought that they did a good job of hitting their spots. I find the Penta glove bit a little overdone because you're looking at it thinking, why wouldn't you just smack him in the face? So when it actually happens, it works for me. But then he sort of rescues it, like throwing it, and Cash just sort of I thought it was cool. He kind of grabbed the glove, and I was thinking that is actually a natural reaction. If someone throws something at you, you would just reflexively try to grab it, even though in this situation, it's a terrible idea because then you're distracted by it. So I thought that was a cute bit. But yeah, I mean, their styles I find are meshing better and better. Unfortunately, I'd say that this seems to be the end of the program. Like it was a definitive ending. If they want to revisit it at some point, I wouldn't have a problem with that. I'll be curious to see who's next up for the Lucha Brothers. But yeah, and I guess we sort of have a hint of who's coming up next for FTR.
The match was a very fast match. I thought it was a very good match too. To me, it felt like slightly under a pay-per-view level match for me, but for TV, I thought it was tremendous and yeah, interesting to think whether or not it was people's match of the night or not. But we shall maybe take a poll a bit later. All right, we have Ty Conti, Anna Jay, and Ruby Soho taking on Nyla Rose, Bunny, and Penelope Ford. Vicky is out with them, and Vicky distracts Conti on the floor, leading to the heels to gain advantage over who started the match off here. Was it Conti that was getting beaten up early? Okay, yes. Hot tag to Ruby Soho. She takes an eye rake from Penelope Ford that allows Nyla Rose to control Ruby throughout the commercial break. Hot tag to Anna Jay during the commercial, leading to a quick little burst from Jay against Nyla Rose. Everybody spills in at this point. Everybody is laid out. Vicky gives Bunny the brass knuckles as she knocks out Anna Jay with it. So Jay is down. Rose picks her back up just to kind of deliver a beast bomb, for added measure for the victory. I thought this was a good 6-woman tag. I thought everybody looked,
I agree.
It was very basic kind of textbook layout, but I thought everybody looked pretty good here.
I expected it to really be all about Ruby and Nyla, and I kind of liked having my expectations subverted because it was really the other 4 who did the lion's share of the work. Particularly Nyla was barely in. She did her big spot at the end, which is fine. That's all I need. I think the fact that the good guys lost I'm pretty certain Ruby is winning this match, and in fact I think she's going to win the title. Yeah, I thought it was a lot of fun. I think maybe if they want to go back they've done it before, but if they want to go back and do another tag match with Penella Bunny and TJ, I'd be up for that. I think that they've done well together. It was a sprint and it was fun.
Tony is in the back with Sting and Darby. Tony's about to ask Sting about returning to Greensboro for Holiday Bash, wrestling there for the first time since 1998. But before Sting can answer, FTR and Tully attack We get a big fight backstage. Darby takes a big bump on the garage door. Tully hits Sting with a low blow. So it looks like this will be FTR's next program, at least for the Holiday Bash in Greensboro against Sting and Darby. So, yeah, what do you think? What do you think about the match and this setup here?
I think that they should actually make backstage interviews illegal because this is just bad. It's every single one, if they can't protect their troops, then this is not something that they should be doing. Like have a chain link fence that goes around the interview team or something. Someone is going to get hurt.
How about some Zoom interviews, guys? Like, it's the technology. Mark Henry has got it down. Okay, everything should just be remote.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. Like he's no fool. He knows what happens.
Yeah, no, I do agree. Like, seriously speaking, it is a very overused trope in AEW.
Mm-hmm.
People attacking people backstage, and I think part of it is because of Tony Khan's like want to always have an explanation for why a camera is there, why a microphone might be there. So segments you might otherwise have of people just talking backstage before getting attacked, he has to kind of frame it with this Tony Schiavone interview. And I think it's overthinking it, and at this point, it's kind of unoriginal and cliche at this point. So
yeah, like it's actually becoming as disruptive as the hidden camera stuff. I don't like the hidden camera stuff either. I never did. But this is, it's starting to get a little ridiculous. Just like have people, they've done things before where they've just had people call other people out. Do that. Mix that in more. It's fine. You're allowed to do that. It's what the show's there for.
I'm going to switch things up a little bit because I think we all know what people are listening to this podcast for. They did not main event with it. So I'm going to talk about the show's actual main event before talking about the people's main event. So I'm going to fast forward a little bit here. We have our Mark Henry face-to-face between the Super Click as they make fun of Rocky's eye patch. Trent wants the match, but Orange Cassidy says tonight is about Wheeler Yuta. So Adam Cole versus Wheeler Yuta. Cole is in control of Yuta for most of the match. He eyes Cassidy and mocks him with the slow kicks. Cole sets up for the Panama Sunrise. Yuta sits down on the cover and actually covers Cole for a pin at 2. We get a brief comeback from Yuta. Cole hits the boom, gets the win. Sorry, the recap is not that detailed here. I was a little bit distracted after this match. But Yuta looked great as always. I thought it was solid. What'd you think, Kate?
I was glad that they let you to get a little more in than they have in previous matches. I think that you maybe there's a clear tease of Adam Cole versus Orange Cassidy. But I do think also that there's a tease for maybe a 10-man, including Rocky Romero. So, Chuck, Trent, who they refer to twice as Trent Beretta. So is he going back to that now? I was a little surprised by that.
I wasn't really paying attention, but I heard on SmackDown he was referred to that as well. So
yeah. So yeah, they've got Chuck, they've got Trent, they've got Wheeler Yuta, they've got Cassidy, and they have Rocky Romero. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And the on the other side you have Cole, Matt and Nick, and Bobby Fish, and I guess then they'd have to find someone else to be their 5th.
Very interesting. Brandon Cutler.
Yes, sorry, of course. What was I thinking?
Very interesting how those numbers may work out. And interesting. Okay. Yeah, of course, the Kyle O'Reilly, rumors or speculation. I think, much of the conversation this week was all about Johnny Gargano. I think we can expect that do you expect Gargano to take an extended break, or do you see him be immediately active in the meantime?
I would, but the one thing that surprised me is obviously his contract is run out. He hasn't renewed, so he has no income right now. And Candice is on maternity leave, so chances are her income is lessened. I don't know what their situation is. I'm sure they're doing well. But that's, if I were a new parent, I'd be a little, I'd be feeling a little nervous about going several months without any money coming in. Like I said, maybe like they could be doing, like they could have planned this all out. I don't know. I noticed he's starting up a Twitch channel as well, opened a Pro Wrestling Tees shop again. So I think that if he's going back to WWE, it's gonna be a while. As far as AEW, look, he's great, and I think a lot of people really like him. I do worry if he came to AEW, there's that chance of getting lost in the shuffle, and it's shuffling more and more.
Okay, if there's something we've seen about professional wrestling is that like Twitch money is pretty damn good. So I don't know if he
Yeah,
has
oh
to
my,
like
yeah,
I
that's
don't know
it.
if he has to take
Like,
one bump, okay? He can sit in his house with his pregnant wife playing video games all day, taking memberships and starting with these pledge drives or whatever they do and probably make a comparable NXT
yeah,
wage, I
like
have to
I'm
say.
yeah, I think I'm more referring to just the uncertainty of it, but
Right.
I don't actually think he's gonna, like, I'm sure that they've put money away. If he's decided to go a few months without working, then I'm sure that they thought about this in advance. But
So post match here, we have everybody in the ring, and Fish catches them by surprise on the floor, leading to the super click teasing a Panama Sunrise onto Orange Cassidy. Instead of hitting the move, though, Cole stops short and just low blows Cassidy. Trent then comes into the ring, and they hit a triple BTE trigger to the man who just returned from neck fusion surgery. So seemingly setting up Cole versus Cassidy first of all, but then probably the Bucks versus Best Friends as well, which should be
mhm.
fun.
Yeah.
So so as I mentioned, that was the main event, but now we close the show and the recap off with the people's main event, everybody. Okay, quarter hour numbers are going to be very interesting to watch, and I have no doubt they will be through the roof because it is the debut of Hook as he takes on Fuego del Sol. Hook is making his AEW debut. He's making his televised professional wrestling debut here. 22 years old.
Hmm.
His dad is on commentary. The man comes out to licensed music here. He's got a theme song
Hmm.
by Action Bronson. The song is called "The Chairman's Intent," and I think this is always a good sign that the promoter is taking you seriously and has high hopes for you when he decides to invest a certain amount of money into your theme song. Yeah, and apparently
Hmm.
Taz,
And
Taz
Tony's showed a willingness. Yeah.
and Taz says he's a apparently good friend. He and Hook are both good friends of Action Bronson as well. So, the future, a potential like live introduction, like with Action Bronson, like accompanying Taz and Hook, I think is already going to be amazing. Just chips falling out the sky. Like, can we just envision it right now? Hook comes out in shorts. He's chewing gum. He's kind of got this like cookie demeanor about him, and big reaction off the bat.
Hmm.
Maybe even before we talk about the match, Kate, tell me about your impression of maybe this phenomenon. How seriously were you taking it? Were you just kind of like in on the joke, so to speak, or were you actively like, looking at this as a potential prospect before all this?
I don't know if I was looking at him as a potential prospect literally until Wednesday when it was announced, because this seemed like it could be years away. The rise of this guy as kind of, I mean, not even an internet star. He's like a meme. He has become this icon just purely from people, I think, starting on Reddit and then all over social media. This has become this sort of obsession. And I think at first that was actually kind of sarcastic. It was done almost ironically, but as he's done more, as he's appeared more, you could sort of see that shifting to people actually being interested. And so for them just to drop this like bang, he's debuting, like no discussion in advance, no tease of who he might be facing. It's like Taz just, he tweeted out during Dynamite, I've got a big announcement coming up in the next break. It's like, oh, okay, we'll see what that is. It's like, wait, I didn't say you had the big announcement. Like, this is it. It is, I think the fact that they just slid that right in actually probably helped because there was already going to be a lot of anticipation around that. So just dropping it so that the world didn't have a chance to sort of get sarcastic and ironic again was probably the best idea.
I really wasn't so much joking when I was saying that I'd be really curious about these quarter hours because I think the placement of a match like this with a cult online favorite on a show that has John and I have been talking, like this is a show that kind of needs its must see event type of programs. And you can only have so many of those if you
Mhm.
need to build to a big Bryan match or a big Punk match. Even those are kind of wearing thin. So, what is something that is going to get people talking online? What is something that is going to make people feel like it's an event? And I certainly didn't think about it, but clearly somebody back there did because this almost felt like it was the perfect thing that like perfectly hits the type of audience that will be watching, would be interested in watching Rampage every week, but might otherwise just kind of DVR the show. So I'm very curious. But we get into the match here. And I, first of all, like it was a thrill to be able to hear Taz on commentary calling the debut of his own son. I'm sure
Mhm.
emotionally it meant a whole lot for him, but also because the man knows every single one of the dude's moves. And with all these judo moves, I needed somebody like Taz to be able to kind of guide us along. So Hook
Mhm.
comes out here. He hits this judo toss early on that Taz identifies as a Koshi Garuma, and then a Sayanagi, and then hitting this beautiful looking entry into a freestyle bow and arrow. Hook delivers then some punches in the corner before hitting a headbutt. All of it is looking really good. And of course, we have to credit Fuego del Sol, who I think did a great job here as the showcase opponent for Hook. We get Hook is gonna kill you chants from this crowd. Um, Really good looking go behind into a high crotch takeover, and Taz identifies it as the Hook calls it the El Camino roll or the El Camino throw. So the kid already has like signature moves. Fuego
Mhm.
gets some offense here, but this crowd is actually starting to boo when Fuego del Sol,
Oh, how do you do that?
the guy that they were cheering their heads off to try to get a contract off of Miro, they were booing here. They would have booed CM Punk. I mean, it's Long
Oh
Island.
yeah,
They would have booed MJF again. No, maybe not that. Anyway,
we not that far, but
Fuego,
close. It would have
Fue-
been a fight.
Fuego goes for his signature tornado DDT, but Hook just puts the brakes on, takes him down with a big lariat. His cockiness, I thought, was really good, and he's
Oh
already like he picked up like how to play to the crowd, you know. Uh, and then this was actually like a really heartwarming moment for me. Hook picks Fuego up, traps him in a head and arm capture, and delivers a picture perfect overhead belly to belly suplex, exactly the way his dad looked,
yeah.
like in ECW, the same type of lift, like it looks picture perfect like a Tazplex. And then with his opponent trapped, Hook applies a number of clubbing forearms, again just like dad, the perfect setup for the Kata Hajime, the submission victory here, which he has identified as or renamed as Red Rum. Is that what he said? Is that what Taz said
I
on,
think
on
that yeah,
commentary?
yeah, yeah.
What did you think, Kate, about this match?
I was really impressed. I thought they just nailed it. I get now that part of the uh, I think now I'm thinking now about how smart it was to let him be this background character, being in all of the backstage uh, skits, being like just coming out, being in front of the audience, doing a move here and there, because I think that that really built up his confidence in front of an audience. And that can be something that betrays a very inexperienced wrestler. Whereas he came out and, like you said, totally cocky, totally able to mug to the audience. And look, his moves look great. They really did look good. I think that, I'd heard a bit that it had gone well. But yeah, I think there wasn't one moment where I felt like, yeesh, okay, this really feels like a newbie. I suspect that he and Fuego had probably trained together quite a bit before that. And yeah, Fuego made a very good opponent, smaller, quick on his feet, lighter. I thought that he sold the moves really well. And yeah, just what can I say? Absolutely nailed it. And
Yeah.
yeah, and so I'm looking forward to seeing more of Hook.
I too was really ecstatic after watching this. This kid has I would say largely been a bit of a comedy figure online, and
Mhm.
depending on how this performance was going to go, he was either going to stay a meme or he was going to elevate himself into being a legitimate young prospect in this company. Uh, and he did that. He absolutely did that.
Mhm.
Exceeded expectations even after hearing
Yeah,
people, in their rave reviews. His in-ring offense looked legitimate,
exactly.
and the kid has a very legitimate, of course, amateur background, of course. Good-looking
And
punches,
I thought it
great,
was very good that they called that out right away. They
good-looking
they they said
punches.
it right off the top, and you could see it immediately. Yeah,
Great looking throws. He's got a very natural anti charisma that sets him apart from many of the others in this company. You can almost look at him as like sort of a heel Orange Cassidy. Somebody who doesn't say a whole
yeah.
lot and doesn't need to in order to get over. Um, there's a lot of attention on him tonight, fair or unfair, but I do have to admit, I think a lot of it was, somewhat mocking. But like you said, Kate, I think there was a lot of
Mhm.
people really, truly curious how this guy was going to look. And he definitely turned all of that attention into, I think, legitimate admiration. And I don't want to overstate it, everybody. This is his first match. Don't go crazy like about wanting to put the belt on him or anything like that. I don't even think the man should like. He should only be on Dark, like, or the occasional Rampage match, sure. But this is the kid's
Mhm.
first televised match. He has years left. He's only 22. But yeah, Kate,
Yeah.
that's a good question. How do you see Hook's next year going in AEW?
I think that, yeah, give him matches on Dark and Elevation. Let him get the experience under his belt. I think also if you want to have him on Rampage or even on Dynamite, I think that you can have him work in tag matches or in trios matches. You've got Starks and Hobbs there. I think that that allows you to protect him a bit, and I really think they should. I got the feeling with a lot of people online that they were waiting to see this match to decide whether or not their interest in him had been ironic.
Hmm.
And so when he does well, it's like, oh yeah, we're always behind him.
Yeah.
If he'd slipped up at all, it would have been like we knew he was nothing.
Hmm.
So I think good for him. I was scared for him, like being that age and having those sorts of expectations on you. And no, well done. I think that there's no reason to over push him. Protect him a bit. Let him get the experience in, and he'll do just fine.
I can't wait to see like in 5 years' time what he's going to look like. Like um, we definitely have our tiers of like definable tiers in AEW. Where obviously at the top it's like your Kenny Omegas, Brian Danielson's. Next level you've got like your four pillar types, MJF, people really on the cusp of breaking into that next level. And then like you have like a big mix of other people in the middle. You have certainly young people who are very like solid and will be on their way up to that MJF level very soon, like a Daniel Garcia, Wheeler Yuta types. And then you have your brand new recruits that are going to in 5 years maybe reach a Daniel Garcia level. And I firmly place Hook amongst maybe some of the more notable in that level. So very exciting. And now we open it up for all of you in the Zoom room. All of you guys deciding to join us every Friday night, 11:15 p.m. Eastern Time, live for our recordings of Rewind to SmackDown. You have a chance to get in on the conversation. Raise your hand in the Zoom room right now, and we will get to your thoughts on the entire week in professional wrestling. I know you want to talk about Hook, but we are also opening up the topics for everything else that happened over the week. And we start off here with Hansi. Hansi, welcome to the show.
What's going on, guys? Good show as always. It has been weird because like this is like like I said before, we got in the airway on Zoom that like this is like the Raw and SmackDown have been the shows that I haven't like watched at all. Where like I relied on you guys before. I never really do that. I normally follow along, but now I know to kind of avoid the SmackDown main event and all that kind of, you know what I mean? Like even though it was a good match, I knew it was gonna be what it was, whatever. Just I'm trying to work on other things, you know what I mean? But if you don't mind, I'd like to talk about AEW Dynamite. That's cool.
Yes, please. Yeah.
All right. Okay, I gotta say that the Punk and MJF segment. They do like this like era of like AEW with how they're like not hiding behind like the fan reaction. It's kind of like the environment reminds me of '97 WWE, and instead of like countries and all that, we're doing cities. And I think this is not going to just be an MJF and Punk thing. I think with different performers who are prominent, I think you're going to find that they're going to have cities where they're going to be really, really over. Like if Brian goes to Seattle and he's still a heel, he's going to be treated like a face there. You know what I mean? And I just like what I like the most about it is that they didn't, other than Punk hammering home for the 80 million time Islander references. Okay, I get that, but other than that, he stood by his points of like of his morals, and MJF stuck to his morals, where like even him like going with the fans and all that, you can see that like even if he's a bad guy would want like the phoniness of the fan. Like they people who are hated, they still want fans to cheer him, even if they pretend like they don't want that, whatever, right? So it fit right in, and I'm actually glad that MJF didn't come out to confront Punk, because that would have been so uncharacteristic of him. And I know it would have gotten over anyways, but like that would not have fit his character, and I'm glad they did it the way they did. And I'll get your reaction, and I just got one last thing to say before I go, if that's cool.
Sure. Kate, any thoughts?
I completely agree, Hansi. I'm very glad that they didn't actually let MJF speak on the show. I thought that made it more effective, because he can't speak and not be a heel. That would be weird. That would be inconsistent with the character. So just letting the video package with the Ferrari and everything hang there, and having him be in the match, having him do his character, but sort of in pantomime, much more effective than actually having him talk.
Yeah, I totally agree. Wait, did you want to say something? Wait, I thought you were talking for a second.
Well, no. I mean, I kind of got all my thoughts out on Wednesday, but it was certainly a unique way of presenting somebody who has been so heel. But I think they show a very clear understanding of what their audience can accept and wouldn't accept. You know, they were treating this very much like Punk's sports analogy. You know, you know these people are assholes, but when they're your asshole, you like them, and you might even love them when they're on your side. So it worked really well.
Yeah, for sure. And before I go, I just want to say, if I can make a prediction, because again they're going to the Bryan and Paige thing, which I think has been built up really, really well. What I think is going to happen, because Punk and MJF are probably going to fight in January. So what I assume might happen is that Bryan and Paige might go to draw, and then that leaves Bryan out of contention for a bit. Where then if Punk beats MJF on their first time, then you can give Punk Adam Page's second defense at the Battle of the Belts, and maybe you can do some chicanery there where MJF kind of cost Punk the title or something, and then basically you still have Bryan and Page at Revolution and MJF and Punk at Revolution if you want to go that route, but you can still do Punk getting the title shot. You know what I mean? That's where I think is going to go. It might probably go different, but that's the way I'm looking at it, the way that they're trying to rush to go to the title. And I don't think MJF is going to go for the title before Punk does. So I feel like that would be the way. And I'll leave you guys with that. But thank you for the good show as always, guys.
Thanks, Hansi. Yeah, it's really interesting. There are obviously a number of ways you can play it to kind of really stretch the thing out and delay it. I still do have concern about like maybe not just even the matches themselves, but the TV interactions between all like either Bryan and Paige or Punk and MJF kind of running dry by taking it all the way to March, and even with like some pause in between. But I don't know. What do you think, Kate?
I will see where it goes, but I do agree that in their case, I would pretty seriously consider having them go to 30-minute draw for Hangman versus Danielson, if only because it also helps along the idea that when Omega is better, that Omega should get another shot against, if one of them is holding the title at the time, because neither, like the idea that neither of them was able to put Danielson away, and you're still holding off him getting the title. And I don't know if they're going to do that, but I think that there's an interesting dynamic there.
Well, I mean, my only hesitation is, do you want to have Paige not be able to beat his first like notable challenger.
That's where the problems creep in, and I think maybe you go back to a rematch with him and Danielson right away. Maybe you go back to that at Battle of the Belts, but I think that it's I think it's a possibility. I like the symmetry of having him and Omega get the same result against Danielson. But again, it benefits Danielson more than anyone.
Okay, thank you for the call, Hansi. And let's keep on with these calls. Let's go up next to John Taylor. John Taylor, are you there? And thank you for joining us.
Hey, Wai. Hey, Kate. So
Hey.
obviously the talk of the wrestling world tonight is Hook. But I'm going to pivot, and I want to talk about ROH Final Battle. So I noticed Tony Khan had said he was going to kind of lend some help, and we see Jay Lethal has been added to the card. Mm-hmm. One thing I was kind of curious and wanted to get your guys' thoughts about, specifically, so Punk is at C2E2 all weekend, but I'm wondering, what are the chances that we might see Bryan Danielson show up, even if it's just as an appearance at Final Battle?
I have to think it's pretty good, you know. Like yeah, we were speculating earlier today. Okay, could Bryan Danielson be the person taking on that main event role? And obviously, that would be the biggest name you could possibly get. But you know, ahead of Winter's coming, I didn't really see that as a possibility. But as an appearance, showing up just to pay respects, I certainly think that's very possible. I also think even if it's not in person, having a video of some sort from him, from Punk. I wouldn't even rule out Samoa Joe, like, you know, sending something in. Like, these are the most anonymous names you have with this company, and for a show that is so meaningful. WWE seemingly has a pretty good relationship with them when they, you know, ask for video library stuff, and Tony Khan, you know, blatantly said it. So help can arrive in a number of ways. I don't expect any of the names I mentioned to have matches at all, but, you know, in the form of, like, video elements, either sent in, I think it's likely, or I wouldn't be surprised. At least in person might be a different question. What do you think, Kate?
I think that Jay Lethal is it in terms of matches. I agree. I think, and the other name that I would add to that is Adam Cole, who I think is still their only 4-time champion. Not 100% sure because I haven't followed them that closely for that long, but he was a big figure there. So yeah, I can definitely see video packages, maybe an in-person appearance, but some sort of input from some of the big former stars of ROH.
Yeah, again, you know, part of the tricky act is not wanting to make this feel like a funeral for Ring of Honor. You know, this is a company that does tend to have plans of keeping this name brand alive and running shows in the future. So how do you do that while still kind of paying respects to, I mean, what they are billing as the end of an era? So it'll be a little curious. So
yeah, and I just really want to know, will the biggest star of them all show up? And that would be Danhausen.
I don't know. What is his status right now, actually?
So he's back. He's putting weight on his right leg. There's a picture of him and CM Punk at C2E2. So he's also at C2E2 right now. I don't know if he's doing all 3 days, but he is kind of appearing in the booth with Punk. Obviously, he won't be cleared to wrestle until I think what he had mentioned was February or March. But you figure he's still under contract with ROH until the end of the year. So possibly an appearance or maybe a pre-tape or something.
So C2E2 is a Chicago thing. I mean, I don't think that necessarily rules out a live attendance for any of the people that are actually there. I mean, it's a relatively short distance, is it not?
Yeah, because they're doing it in Baltimore, aren't they?
Yes. Yeah. I mean, it's a, you know, Tony Khan, I'm sure can, yeah, it's a 10-hour drive. I don't expect them to necessarily make that, but it's only a 2-hour flight. So I wouldn't completely rule it out, you know, certainly from, I guess you have to ask, like, if how mobile is Danhausen right now? Like, is it worth getting on a plane to, you know, make a quick appearance, or should, you know, can we just expect some sort of video thing? I don't know, but I would expect some presence on the show.
Thank you.
I agree. I also think that, I mean, I don't know if I'm the only one who thinks this, but I I think he might already unspoken be with AEW. Like I'm certain that he's coming, but just with the amount of just how much he tweets and talks about AEW, with the number of times he's appeared with AEW stars, like I think he may quietly have signed.
He's either signed
as,
he's either signed to AEW or he might be signed to ANW, the burger joint, as he's been tweeting out. So yeah, no, I believe Tony Khan was even asked about him, and they have kind of made references to each other. So yeah, I feel like he'd be very much a shoo-in. I don't know if he'd be. I don't know the legality of whether or not he'd actually be eligible to be signed yet. Jay
well,
Lethal,
they
of course,
released everyone from their
True.
obligations. So I think in that way, I was already pretty sure he was coming to AEW even before this happened, because I think that there's room to sort of slide him into the Orange Cassidy role there. But yeah, I wouldn't be surprised in appearance. I don't know. I would probably think that it'd be something recorded, because he traveling with a broken leg like that, I just think it's going to be super uncomfortable, and you're inviting things to go wrong.
And Danhausen's character is perfect for a recording anyway, so it doesn't hurt him not actually physically being there.
Thank you so much for the call, John. And as we mentioned, John and Mike Murray and WH will have a Final Battle post show exclusively for Cafe patrons tomorrow, so stay tuned for that. Let's go up next to MJ. MJ from NJ. We haven't heard from you for a while, so if you're there, please unmute yourself. What's going on?
Good evening, Wai and Kate. Nice to be on with you guys, with both of you.
Likewise.
So since no one wanted to talk about Hook so far, or no one has,
I'm
really
surprised. First,
I'll go right in.
You're gonna break the seal?
Yeah. Well, first, I'm kind of surprised that people are, I guess, surprised that Hook's like the real deal, because to me, that's this company proves over and over again that they know how to like pull the trigger on these characters, and like they've used him so perfectly. Everyone wanted him when it was Punk and Hobbs, and I feel like that kind of cooled off, and they timed this perfectly. I think now they got like a perfect runway to like strap a rocket on him. I would strap a rocket on him. I would put him right into the mix of like TNT championship caliber, and here's why. It's like we don't really get polished 22-year-olds that can appeal to, maybe just below the target or the key demo that will eventually grow your key demo. Like, how are you going to get like the next 18, 19, 20-year-olds into wrestling? And Hook can speak to them because he's the real deal.
I think you're making a lot of assumptions. Okay, MJ, like with all due respect, like you're assuming that he somehow like is connecting with the target demo, and there's not enough evidence to suggest that whether he is or not. Secondly, I don't even think there's enough evidence to suggest that he's polished, much less like it's a 5-minute match that we saw, and he definitely looked better than most people having their first match. But can he live up to the demands of like what the TNT championship holders have like presented so far? I have a hard time thinking he could.
So I would not. All right, so let me back up. Maybe not put a title on him, but elevate into that caliber of guy that's like in the mix with a Miro, or in the mix with but put him ahead of Ricky Starks and Will Hobbs as far as Team Taz goes. Like, he should be the face of that team. When I say polished, like, he's looked the part this whole time as this kind of like young guy in this group. Tonight, when he came to the ring, he looked like the star of the group. I know the group wasn't with him, but he felt like a standout. And I mean, they gave him the Action Bronson song. So that to me is like, they're clearly trying to do something with his character that is targeting a demo. I don't know if it's going to work, but I would go all the way with it and see if it can work, because he's, looks as good as any 22-year-old I've seen come along.
What do you think, Kate?
I think that if we're talking about guys in their 20s, I think that Hook does have a career, like in their early 20s. I think Hook has a unique kind of charisma. I think that keeping his presence on television is a good thing. Don't know if I'd rush him into a lot of matches, but I think that giving him a larger presence within the group was excuse me. I think that I think that will help. I think it's more important to protect him. If they want to really push some of the younger guys as wrestlers, I would go more with Daniel Garcia or Lee Moriarty or Wheeler Yuta. I think that those are the guys who have really, Garcia and Lee Moriarty especially, they are dazzling for their age, and they're around the same age as him. So I think with them, what you need to work on is allowing them to project more of a character, allowing them to really develop more in front of an audience. And look, they don't have tons of time to do that, so you have to sort of figure out a way to give them the exposure that they need. But for Hook, I think until you're really sure that he can go in the ring for like these 10, 12 minutes minimum, which is about standard for a lot of AEW matches, then I think you want to expose him cautiously to audiences.
That's kind of what I'm thinking of. And there are people that are going to joke that they should give him a Goldberg push. Goldberg push sounds great,
but a Taz push.
A Taz push. Okay, you mean a WWE Taz push?
Yeah.
Or he like, maybe wins a few matches and then kind of loses to a debuting Olympian and then just, does commentary for the next 5 years.
They should give him the first part of the Taz push where he beats a couple guys nice and easily, like tonight. It looked good.
And I think MJ, I think they will treat him well on Dark. He will be getting, like, he's in need of experience right now. And you would be doing him a disservice by putting him out on a big stage in short matches where he's not being taught how to sell, or he's not being taught, how to cut a promo. When people say Goldberg push, I don't necessarily think of that as a good thing, because there's a reason why Goldberg, I thought, burned out really fast as a gimmick. You want to create guys that are going to be in this industry for a long, long time, and will have a variety of skills to offer. And this guy is young; he's 22. So,
I think it's a way that we're used to looking at wrestling, where we got to wait for the guys to be developed and much later in their careers to be the star. And I'm not saying this guy should be the star of this company, but definitely be presented at a, I don't see anything wrong with a younger age. Daniel Garcia is the perfect next opponent, or perfect feud for him. I would love that.
I think what will be really interesting to me too is they're going to have to pick someone who's going to hand Hook his first loss, and that can actually be very important. And I'll be curious to see where they go with that. I'm not saying it should happen that soon, but I feel like they can't delay it too long, or you're going to get the sort of, they're putting him on a Goldberg run, or they're protecting him too much. So I'll be curious to see what happens there.
Thank you for the call, MJ. Appreciate it as always. Sorry to cut you off there a bit early, but we go to Joe from H-Town. Joe, are you there?
Hey, what's going on, guys?
Hey, Joe, what's up?
Well, I just finished watching Hook, so I'm going to talk about Hook. I saw a mix of his dad. I saw Floyd Mayweather. I saw BJ Penn, and obviously the moves from his dad, the walkout, and just the aura around him, Floyd Mayweather, and the look that he had in his eyes. I remember BJ Penn walking to the cage just like that, with that look, like he's gonna kill somebody. And the sicko look on his face, that's what I saw. I mean, that guy's a star, from his first match. The walkout was impressive. Action Bronson, that was awesome. I mean, I'm hooked.
Aren't we all?
Perfect. Yeah, we're all hooked. Okay, so a combination of Taz, BJ Penn, and Floyd Mayweather sounds very devastating. At the right height too, I have to say, all of them.
I was impressed. And one real quick thing, and I got to go to sleep here, but with so many WWE guys out there, Swerve, Keith Lee, Gargano. Would you even waste your time doing some kind of invasion angle? And the reason I say that is because, back in 2001 when the WCW guys were coming in, I stopped watching at that point, but everybody talks about that. They messed it up. WWE messed it up. They didn't do it right. They dropped the ball. And I just see Tony Khan a lot of times when he sees things that WWE doesn't do right. I kind of feel like he wants to show them like how to do it right and kind of put it in their face a little bit. So would you even waste your time doing some kind of invasion angle like that? I mean, Braun Strowman, just bring all these guys in, beat up on AEW and not even necessarily keep everybody, but just keep the 1 or 2 or 3 guys that, you want to keep on contract. What do you think?
So you're suggesting an NXT invasion angle?
Not necessarily a WWE invasion. All these guys are available. Keith Lee, Strowman, Wyatt. I mean, bring 10, 12 guys in, beat up, and just keep the ones that stick out.
The idea of like an invading group of wrestlers, anytime you have like, this kind of mass free agency and everybody having this sort of united bond by having the same employer, I think that can sometimes work. Certainly, I think it would have worked with WCW when they, attempted to roll ECW in. I thought it worked. I thought it worked a lot more with ECW than WCW, but not just because of the roster that they had, but because you can understand why people would actually be loyal to ECW. I cannot understand why any of the released wrestlers would want to fly the flag of the WWE or Vince McMahon. Even in storyline, it's not a story that's believable to the audience. If anything, this is an audience. This is a group that would like want to be AEW, and it's hard. It would be hard for me to buy a story where they're like, "We've come here to take over for Vince." I don't know. What do you think, Kate?
I think that, I think that it's way too tricky in terms of the execution, because of course the other thing is that when you're talking about faction warfare, someone has to win. So you're either just going to like beat these guys who just arrived, which means that even if you want to keep them, you're going to have to rebuild them from scratch once this is done, or you're going to have the WWE guys beat the AEW guys, which is arguably worse. I agree with you, by the way, about Tony seeing things that WWE has done wrong and wanting to correct them. I think that is, I have seen elements of that before, but this one, it just seems like it's way too tricky. I don't know. Mm-hmm. That's not to say that I don't want to see some of these guys, a few of them, guys and gals, in AEW, but yeah.
I almost find it more interesting what they're doing right now with guys like Cole coming in and, kind of rekindling his relationships with people like the Bucks from before. Mm-hmm. Obviously with Bobby Fish coming in and presumably Kyle O'Reilly, like they can do an Undisputed Era, and that would absolutely work because these are, they're you can buy that they're loyal to each other, not necessarily loyal to the company at all as a whole. If they can frame it to say that, oh, okay, Keith Lee and I go way back, from our days in the backstage, and here's Keith Lee and Kyle O'Reilly who are good friends. Fuck WWE, but they're united because they want to. You killed the company I was working on. You killed the show I was working on. It could be interesting. But yeah, I do think there are a number of ways of going about it. Thank you very much for the call, Joe. Appreciate that. Brian, thank you very much for waiting patiently. You're on the show. What's up?
No problem at all. Happy Hookmas to both of you.
Happy Hookmas.
And I understand totally, like, protecting this young man, nurturing his career. He has a long career ahead of him. But at the very least, I want to see Hook in one of these Modelo ads that are playing right now, if you've seen these as well. Mm-hmm. I think he'd fit the vibe really well. And
no, I haven't seen them.
Oh, okay. Yeah, they're just like very casual beer ads. Stipe Miocic has been in one of them, just telling these people's rise to fame and glory. I think Hook would fit the vibe of those as well. So,
like right now,
yeah,
like his rise from walking out to beating,
like 12 months from now.
12
months from now or so.
Interesting. I'm just
Yeah.
honestly quite amazed, like Kate, like at just people are talking about sponsorship deals for this kid who like has wrestled 5 minutes on TV. It's crazy.
Yeah, I think
But sponsorship deals often come to people who do arrive very quickly and who seem to have the sort of who have captured the public imagination. So I'm not familiar with the particular ads you're talking about, but it's not out of the question. I think.
I mean, if anything, it would be a chip company, would it not?
yes.
Mhm.
Not sure it would be Lay's or hers or those ghost pepper chips that the kids are crazy for. But yeah, it's all pipe dreams really for this.
I mean,
young
AEW
man.
should be making their own chips and selling them. Like, they call the contacts who make the ice cream, see if they know any chip people. I'm sure
Sure.
pro wrestling tees can, like, buy some branded chips and make packaging for it.
Oh, those would probably be terrible. But yeah, my main thing I want to talk about is Ring of Honor. I hope to order Final Battle tomorrow night. And I caught what you and John and Benno said about the show, and it definitely feels like ordering the show for what it is, not the particular card, even though there's definitely the potential for a lot of good wrestling on this card. But the loss of Bandito definitely was a serious body blow. And considering this guy has already dealt with COVID and he gets it again, it's disappointing, and it's just terrible.
Mhm.
Like this cycle of COVID in general.
Yeah, what is interesting about that is that they've announced that Jay Lethal versus Jonathan Gresham is not going to be for the ROH Championship.
Yes.
So they are going to announce what their plans are going to be for the World Championship, and therefore I have to imagine maybe they still have plans for Bandito to make some sort of return. Perhaps.
I would hope so. Yeah.
Who knows when and what that's going to look like? But you may not have seen the last of Bandito in ROH.
I would hope so. Although he has been getting other bookings elsewhere.
Mhm.
So, I'm giving this company the benefit of the doubt that they will return in the spring for Supercard of Honor. But it's definitely going to be a whole entirely different atmosphere for them.
Mhm.
So,
Yep.
that's just how it is.
Well, thank you for calling in, Brian. Hopefully, if you watch the show, leave some feedback tomorrow for John, WH, and Mike.
Right on.
Thank you very much. Let's go finally in terms of phone calls to Stepite. Stepite, what's up?
Hi guys.
Hey, Stepite.
Hey.
So after tonight's sports entertainment, I have one burning question. We know that Brock Lesnar is all for moose meat. Adam Pearce has not indulged. I would assume that Impact Wrestling World Champion Moose is probably fond of moose. I'm wondering if you guys have ever had the pleasure.
Have I had moose meat? That's actually not as ridiculous of a question as you usually ask, Stepite. There might have been a chance that I've actually eaten moose, like on some sort of like northern camping trip. Like there's a restaurant that I think served it, and we may have ordered it as a family just to kind of say that we've tried it. But if it happened, I was very young. I probably didn't particularly remember it nor like it. So, have you, Kate?
Yeah, I have. I have had moose meat, like just cooked as moose meat. I've also had moose jerky.
How is it?
Yeah.
I mean, if you've had venison before, it's very similar. It's like, I think like unless you were trying one right after the other, it would be difficult to tell. I mean, it's like a lot of game meats, like elk. Like, it's dark. The one thing I would say for Brock is I hope he's very good at making sauces or braising, because it is something that dries out very easily.
Yeah,
Man.
I would say the same. It's kind of a staple in Newfoundland, and I've always been more fond of like thinly sliced moose with some kind of sauce versus like a roast. Then you really taste the gaminess, I think, if you have a moose steak or a moose roast.
I know Brock has had hunting shows in the past, but the cooking show, like Brock pot, like a crock pot.
Crock pot Brock.
I would
Brock
love to.
Board eat. Yeah, there we go. Right.
I would love the Brock Lesnar cooking show. I bet you he is a beast in the kitchen. You know, was it good? Like,
Oh,
not just.
well, we're clearly like coming up with all of like they have to do it now. We need to license these ideas to WWE.
Can you imagine if WWE had the sense to make a Brock and Sable cooking show in the style of the Bellas? Yeah, that'd be something.
I think he'd be down for that. I think he would break up his. He would give them a good deal, and not just.
Well, he's constantly talking about eating dead animals.
He loves
why
it.
not?
Professor Kevin, of course, here with the line. Maybe this is what the show should be called. Do you smell what the Brock is cooking? There we go. Steppy Tay, thank you very much with an actually interesting conversation that you introduced here.
Thank you, guys. Have a lovely sleep.
Okay, we will. Thank you, Steppy Tay. Kate, I know it's running a bit longer, but we have a few pieces of feedback. If you wouldn't mind sticking around for a little bit here.
Oh, not at all.
This is, of course.
I don't have plans later.
You're gonna rewatch the Hook debut. I know you are. So, forum.postwrestling.com, everybody. Brandon from Oshawa simply wants to say, Hook looked amazing. I hope he gets a Goldberg-like win streak. Okay, we shall see. Vic, the only thing that matters tonight is Hook. I delayed going out tonight to see his debut. I don't care where it happens, but I need to see Hook versus Dominic Mysterio ASAP. AEW's young talent is the future of pro wrestling. I don't really get Wheeler Yuta, but he's a decent enough wrestler. I hope Adam Cole gets away from the goofy Young Bucks and feuding with joke characters soon. He's a top guy, but his feuds with Dark Order and Best Friends are slowly diminishing him. Hopefully they pull out a Miro-like redo with him. Cal can't get to AEW soon enough. Do you agree, Kate? Do you feel like...
I think that...
yeah.
I think that ultimately... I know that people have ideas about Danielson and MJF. To me, I do think that there should be a medium-term plan to set up Cole versus Hangman. And it does feel a little like maybe they're treading water. I think at least they're giving him lots of time. He's very visible. But yeah, I don't hate it. I think he's doing fine, but I do think that the big program that you want to head to is him versus Hangman Page for the title.
I definitely don't disagree that, like when he was in NXT, he was the top dog. He was the guy competing for the world championships. Mm-hmm. I think rarely did any sort of like goofy comedy that you would see on a BT, for instance. So since he's come back, he's kind of reprised that, Super Click, Young Bucks type of thing. And he has to kind of fit that mold, which is, and oftentimes a lot more comedic. I get the sense that this is simply a way to kind of introduce him to the audience, and also more so something to give him to do while the top end is so cluttered up right now with your Punk and Bryan Danielson's challenging for the championship. There's really no place for Cole. Like a match with Page is definitely down the line, but I think in the meantime, let him have his run with the Bucks. Maybe eventually turn on the Bucks, reunite the Undisputed Era, and I think the moment that they want to make him serious, they can do that very quickly. Anthony also said,
he's talented enough that he can pivot. Sorry.
No worries. Sorry. We're on a bit of a delay, so apologies if we trip over each other's words on this podcast. But Anthony says, in Hook, we trust. That is all. And then finally, we got a Robbie from London who says, really enjoyable Rampage. The tag titles were great. The tag title match was great. 1,000,000 miles a minute. And a false finish I absolutely bet on. The women's trios was fun, and what can I say? Hook has me hooked. Great debut. I was definitely impressed. Do you guys see anybody from Chaos coming in to join in on the Elite versus Best Friends feud? Best Friends are already pretty full, I feel.
Yeah.
Of course there's an open.
I might have before. I mean, they've already had Ishii. I think if they're going to include him, they would have. Really, the only other name that people are going to talk about is Okada, and he has to be heading back to Japan very shortly because he's got a quarantine before Wrestle Kingdom.
The Okada teases, I really do, now in hindsight, wonder, what was up with that? Did they have a plan in mind? Did they have a date in mind? Did they think that they were going to get an Okada date on that tour that he was, briefly here for, or was it to build to something in the future? Because in the future, I'm not exactly sure when we would next be able to see Okada. he's going to be very tied up for January for the Wrestle Kingdom shows. Can we see
Yeah,
him
and
coming back and like soon after that or later?
I mean, it sort of depends on what the state of travel is, but you've just dealt with the longest window of the year when he would have been available, which is like when Best of Super Juniors and World Tag League are going on. After Wrestle Kingdom, I mean, it goes back to all being about the heavyweights, and I suspect he's going to win the title at Wrestle Kingdom, in which case he's just going to be like nonstop for several months. I don't know. I mean, they were teasing fairly heavily whether or not they intended that to be for something that ended up not happening, or whether it's just sort of planting the seeds for something longer term. I don't know, but it's unlike Tony to tease something like that heavily and not pay it off.
MJ in the chat brings up as well when they tease Tanahashi for a time too, and wasn't that Mox?
Yeah, actually, you're right. In fact, he said for sure that he was coming when he won the U.S. title at the show in San Jose, I think it was. He specifically said, that was the very end of the match. Lance Archer said, you have to promise to come back and let me have a rematch. And that was the thing. He said yes. It's like, you promised.
Yeah. I mean, I do feel like this might be a case of like, very loose plans being prematurely announced and maybe card subject to change. But of course, I mean, with COVID being the way that it is, things are going to change. So we see if, there's going to be a slot for, these maybe US shows advertising on Tanahashi or Okada in the future, and then maybe seeing something then, or we might have to just wait a bit longer. But that about wraps it up for tonight's edition of Rewind SmackDown. Always a pleasure to have you on, Kate, and to cover such a massive,
always a pleasure to be here.
A massive event in the industry tonight, such as the debut of Hook. Where can people hear more of your thoughts?
You can find me on Twitter at She Rants MTL. She rants about wrestling. Also, later this month, I'm going to be on the British Wrestling Experience end of year quiz show, and so I'm going to get to test my knowledge of wrestling in 2021.
Teaming with Andrew
Thompson.
Teaming with Andrew Thompson. Do you have a team name yet?
No.
Get suggestions, everybody. Suggestions, yes. Everybody, too.
Very, very open to suggestions.
Okay. Speaking of the British Wrestling Experience, they have a brand new show out on their feed right now. So go and check out our friends on their British Wrestling Experience feed with Martin Benno and Andy Ogden, of course. I have I have an edition of MCU Later that's also out on the Cafe feed. If you scroll down right now, talking about episode 4 with WH Park and the returning Jojo Remy. It was really nice to get Jojo's thoughts on that. On the MCU, we talk about the Spider-Man hype with less than a week to go before its debut. We also talk about Charlie Cox and Daredevil. So if you are interested in what wrestling podcasters have to say about comic book movies, listen to that show. Tomorrow, as I mentioned, UFC 269 post show with Phil Chertok, Eric Marcotte on the free feed, live right after the event at youtube.com/postwrestling. ROH Final Battle post show exclusively on the Post Wrestling Cafe with John Pollock, Eric Marcotte, and Mike. Sorry, I'm getting my shows mixed up. We have so many. John Pollock, WH Park, and Mike Murray. So expect that, not live, but recorded sometime after Sunday morning. And then on Saturday morning, we have the Long Winding Royal Road, also with WH Park. He's talking about Toshiaki Kawada versus Masawa from 1998 with Dylan Fox. Sunday evening, we're almost done here. WrestleNomics. Brandon Thurston, Chris Colo wrap it all up with your daily dose of wrestling data and numbers and all that very interesting good stuff from those guys. So that's it for me.
I love that.
Talk to you guys later. All right. Bit of a mouthful.
Okay.
But, got through it. Sorry, Kate. I just turned the cameras off at the end just because we are experiencing a bit of lag. So I was hoping it would.
Yeah, no problem. I noticed it's Yeah, not sure what's going on. We've had such good luck with this.
You know, it's like
last several times I've been on.
StreamYard has been was perfect with you last time. I do get the sense maybe it's the Zoom technology, perhaps. So might have to do something about that in the future.
Yeah, that's true, because it was the thing that we used yesterday was different.
Yeah. Can I also ask, like, does your mic have any sort of like setting, like directional setting on it? What kind of mic do you have?
It does not have a directional setting.
Okay, got it. Yeah, I'm just kind of curious because like some mics are able to like focus the pattern to the center and whatnot. But okay, no, that's all good. All right, well, thank you everybody for being here as always, and we'll talk to you all soon. Goodbye.
Bye.